Hi, friends, and welcome back to the Tiffany Jo Baker podcast, where my heart and hope is that you and I continue to get free and live in such a way that we can wholly pursue our God given why. Each bite sized episode will uplift your soul and success through soul care, simple steps, and strategies straight from heaven for your heart hurts, your hellholes, and your healing, enabling you to accomplish all the things God has called and created you to do step by step and season by season. Hi, y'all, and welcome back to the Tiffany Jo Baker podcast. I am Tiffany Jo and excited for this episode. And as always, my heart is that you and I, all of us, can continue to get free, live full, and thank God. And today I have with me a mom, a counselor, a doctor of functional medicine who has her own story of when her child had a secret battle and it came out and what the family went through in the process, and of course, how God showed up. So, this is Janelle Martin. Janelle, thank you for joining me here today.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
I am excited too. As we were like connecting over email,
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my goodness, like not that I love that you had to go through the story that you had to go through, but we have some similar heart cries. We have some similar experiences. I was the prodigal teen,
Yeah.
and now I had a master's in counseling and minister and coach, and am going through my own continuous healing journey, right? As we all do as humans. Um, but Janelle, you had a story with your daughter,
Mhm.
and y'all wrote a book called "Losing Her, Finding Us." Is that correct? Did I say that right?
You did.
Tell us a little bit about your story, and then we'll go from there.
Okay. I'll try to give you the clip notes
Sure.
because it's in the book. But I had quite a long struggle, actually. I've been divorced, or I was divorced from my kid's dad when they were quite young. The relationship became abusive,
Mm.
and but he was a decent dad, I thought. But over the years, what we realized was once I had remarried and my kids were like 8 and 10. So Reagan is the younger one. They're 2 years apart. He didn't like that I remarried, and he made it sort of his life's mission to destroy me. But he did that through my children, or tried to do that through my children. Thankfully, I am grounded in my faith, and nobody's going to steal my joy. So I did know that he was doing something. I didn't know what it was,
Mm.
but but in the meantime, when you use your children to get back at someone, you don't necessarily destroy the target, you're destroying your children. And that's what happened. So I have an estranged
Mm.
son. His tactics worked on my son. So that is an ongoing
Mm.
story in my life. But with my daughter, she was very much torn.
Mm.
She didn't, she grew up thinking it wasn't okay to be okay with mom and stepdad. But there's some about dad that didn't sit right with her either. And the things that he would say and stuff, I never defended myself. So she just grew up not understanding and not knowing what was real and what was not. And when she would visit him when she was really young, like ages 4 to 6, she was sexually abused by a neighbor of his and never told anyone. So she was
Mm.
also dealing with this, as many young women do, and even our age, but it's so way too common. But we didn't know. I had no idea. So she had this, and then she had this stuff with her dad going on,
Mm.
and it just manifested in kind of innocently at first. She's in high school and somebody offers her marijuana or whatever, and she takes it, and it was the feeling that all this really hard stuff, the hard emotions,
Mm.
they all dissipated in that moment for her. And that was the beginning. And it went quickly where she became she was a drug addict in high school. As a senior, I was clued in. I knew something was going on, as a parent, but drugs were never on my radar. I didn't do any drugs in school. Like I was never around it. So I was the most ignorant probably person there is when it comes to something like that, but you know when there's something wrong and you can see your daughter being the light being basically taken out of her before your eyes. And if I hadn't been sent a photograph of my daughter using drugs by a friend of hers, I don't know how long it would have taken me to actually get help. So, or take action, because even seeing that, which still can bring me to tears really thinking about it.
Mhm.
Um, it really started us on this journey of crisis.
Mhm.
And she spiraled out of control. I ended up sending her, kicking her out middle of her senior year to go live with her dad, which felt like losing both of my children.
Mhm.
And ultimately, she continued to spiral even worse
Mhm.
there. And he lived out of state, so he was in Arizona, so that's where she was. And within about 3 months, actually, we had to find help for her because neither of us could handle her. And she wasn't coming back to my house in the state that she was in. And so we found treatment, and that was totally God breathed because I didn't know anything about anything. So, Google search for
Mhm.
treatment for your 17-year-old is all you know to do. I didn't know any friends. I didn't even know any, but yeah, I didn't know anything. And I didn't want to tell anyone what was going on either, and I didn't.
Mhm.
So, God showed me where to take her, and it ended up being it saved all of our lives. It saved our family. It saved our relationship. She was there for a year,
Wow.
and I dove in and I did recovery too. Not really for her, but for me. I did want to be able to talk to her about recovery because if I didn't know what it was hard to have conversations. And
Mhm.
but what ended up I so initially I did do it for her,
Mhm.
kind of. But what I realized is it really was for me, and it was life-changing for me. And from that point, once we got through, she was in treatment for a year. So I was with her and I did parent stuff for that whole time. And my life changed after that completely. That's when I started doing what I do now. I
Mhm.
wasn't doing this before, but I became a healer after that, accidentally. Even then, I was still fighting it. Like, this isn't really what I wanted to do, but now that I'm doing it, it is exactly what I was meant to do. So that transformation has been huge. And through all of our struggles and the really hard stuff in the middle there, my
Mhm.
daughter actually works with me now. She's been with
Mhm.
me 3 years. And that is a miracle because I didn't see it coming even when she asked if she could work with me. Um, but it's just been the most beautiful sort of full circle thing that could have ever happened. So it is a miracle.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so many questions that I
Oh,
could
is it?
ask from that. I mean, such a story of redemption. And I love that you said like full circle, like full circle moments and how, we go through these things in life and so many times we're like, why? Why? And then you continue the journey, you continue the path and you look back and it's like you have these aha moments. You're like, oh, that's why.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what you mean. What Satan meant for evil, God, you're going to use for good.
Correct. Correct.
That's what you mean by that. And there's still, I'm sure, some things that you have questions about and still have the whys about, as we all do and continue to live. But when we have those moments, those things that we can hold on to, it's just such a beautiful testimony,
Yeah.
and so encouraging and inspiring for other people, and as you're continuing to walk out your purpose. So I want to go from like a parenting perspective because,
Mhm.
like I said, I was a prodigal teen who I was dating a drug dealer. I was using, I was never an addict, but heading there.
Mhm.
Um, and definitely in the lifestyle, got kicked out of my house, all the things. Um, um, why? And then I love that you said that, that as she was going through recovery, that you went through recovery, like you did recovery,
Yep.
and found healing and in the story and in the part of it. And so here's my question, because I've been on an intentional healing journey, even more so, um, in the last 5 to 7 years. And so as parents, we can come into parenting. So my question is, why is it important for us to be healed and whole and in a healing journey as parents? Because we can parent, I would say one of three ways. We can parent out of just a really broken place.
Mhm.
We can parent from a really prideful place where like we've got all the answers, we know what we're doing, we're older, whatever. Or we can parent from a healing place where we're continually healing and getting whole. I say wholer and wholer. It's not good grammar or English, but um, so why in your professional and personal experience do we need to continuing to get healed and whole
Because
ourselves?
we don't know everything.
Yeah.
There's no way to ever know everything. And, these generations that are coming up now, they're different than we were. Their experiences are different than ours were when we were their age.
Yep.
And we're really not capable of fully relating to the things that they're dealing with and going through. We had our own struggles, and those are important, but
Mhm.
theirs are different. And recognizing that I think is really important. And there's a lot that we can learn from our children.
Mhm. Mhm.
We're the parent, but we're not the authority on everything. They can teach us a lot if we just let them. And I think, I was encouraged by all the other parents in the program
Mhm.
of, getting a sponsor and doing the 12 steps and like really diving in. And their support and encouragement was so incredibly valuable to me. That was like a gift from God right there. And, who would have known? Coming in, you feel so broken and shameful, and you don't know what's going on, and you're just trying to figure it out, and you want your daughter to be okay or your child to be okay, but these parents come around you and they're living it too, and they get it, and they're not judging you, they're loving you, they're encouraging you, they're giving you hope
Mhm.
and a path to walk that they've been walking, and they look so happy,
Mhm.
like they're okay. And I
Yes.
want that too.
Mhm.
And it's possible. It's not possible to do it, sitting in your closet crying, which I've had my moments for sure, but
Mhm.
that's not healing. And I have learned, I mean, an immense amount of just
Mhm.
life lessons and stuff throughout this journey that I could have never learned any other way.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I just think being a parent is, it's a really important job, but it's also important for us to be vulnerable and know that we don't know everything and we're not perfect at everything and we're not
Yeah.
going to get it all right. We don't, but that's okay because we're not expected to, as
Mhm.
long as we continue to try to do better.
Mhm. Mhm. So good. So good. And I think when we see our kids struggling, like we can see ourselves in that,
Yes.
that part of us that maybe we've closed off, turned off, um, medicate, self-medicate. And we can see that human part of them coming out, especially when they're young, because they haven't learned to filter it or to mask it or to veil it. And that can be a really scary place as a human and as a parent who's in the rat race and just in the mode of survival. And then when something happens and it comes crashing down, you have a choice to make. And I love that you and your family chose life and chose healing and chose recovery. So maybe a mom or dad is listening, maybe even a young adult is listening. I have quite a few young adults that listen to this. What would you say to either of them, any of them that are kind of in the midst and are thinking, I need help? What would you say to them?
I would say find a support group.
Mm.
Initially, if it's an addiction or substance use issue, Al-Anon is everywhere.
Mhm.
I started parents of addicted loved ones groups here,
Mhm.
and I know those are across the country too. So if you're
Mhm.
specifically a parent of a child that's struggling, that is an amazing support system for you. It offers educational content and then also a support content where you can talk and get advice or suggestions from people who have maybe walked the path a little bit ahead of you. But
Mhm.
I really feel that isolation in these crisis times is the worst thing because we start to just beat ourselves down even more. We don't have anybody there encouraging us. We're just beating ourselves up, and we end up in a really dark place, and it can make you really physically sick too,
Mhm.
just being isolated. So reach out to someone.
Mm,
Go to an Al-Anon meeting, and I know how hard that is. I know what it's like to walk in there and feel like an
mm,
alien, basically, like you don't know if you belong anywhere, but go and keep going because you will find
mm.
something there that will give you that spark to move forward.
I love that,
Yeah.
to get to not stay isolated, because you even mentioned that you didn't tell anybody what y'all were going through at first,
Nope.
because we like to have everything looks great, we're doing
Yep.
good, I'm fine, I'm good, all the things. Um,
Yep.
so because of all this, you and your daughter have this is what you do now full time, and you do something called you have a place called the Mind Connection in Houston,
Yes.
Texas, and you deal with brain health and things like that. So tell us, because why do you do what you do now? What did you find out in the process of healing that has led you to what you're doing now?
Well, just like I said, I think all of this was orchestrated,
Mm,
way before because when after I'd kicked my daughter out and sent her to Arizona to live with her dad, I was scheduled to go to a conference in Dallas for it's called Irlen syndrome, and she has that too. And you can look that up. Or it's in the book. But I had scheduled to go to this conference, and there was a speaker there that was talking about neurofeedback,
mhm,
how to heal the brain. I had no idea you could do that. And
mm,
it blew my mind. This was the best presentation I'd ever seen. Who knew? It's been around since the 60s.
mhm,
So during the time after that, I did get excited about that. My daughter was in Arizona. Everything was supposedly fine. Nobody was telling
mhm,
me that there was anything wrong. So I decided I wanted to learn how to do neurofeedback and I was going to train. And about the time I decided I was going to go to Dallas to do that, that was when actually the flood came in of, oh, things are not fine. Everything is actually much worse. And we need to find help for her. So I forgot all about brain
mhm,
heal, forgot. So fast forward about a year and a half, we've been through treatment and recovery. We're still going through recovery today,
mhm,
but that's that. But that initial year, we've been through sobriety, relapse, more sobriety, whatever. Reagan and I are talking at a community meeting that summer, and we were just telling our story, and it was a meeting about the drug abuse in the community. So how do we help? What can we do? So we told a little bit of our journey at
mhm,
that point. And there was a man there randomly. He didn't live in that area. He didn't work in that area.
mhm,
I don't know how he got there
mhm,
because it didn't make sense. But he came up to me afterward because he did have a son that had died of an overdose and he was
mhm,
starting a nonprofit or had a nonprofit. And he had found this really cool brain healing technology that was going to help people in recovery, stay in recovery. Like it's going to heal their brain and, all the depression and anxiety and the
mhm,
insomnia and all the things are going to go away and it's going to
mhm,
help. And I heard brain and went, I want to do that.
mhm,
Tell me about that. So he had found a newer system than the one that I had seen before. And I ended up working for him for a year and he
mhm,
had me trained and I worked under him. And when I left him, that's when I opened my own practice.
mhm,
And actually, Reagan was my first client when I was initially after I trained because she was about 6 months sober again at that point, and he let me treat her for free. So
mhm,
she
mhm,
got the benefits of what the system does and swears by it.
mhm,
Um, but working together was never a thing. So I started my own private practice and I built upon that. People coming in getting brain healing, yes, is very effective and amazing, but a lot of people have trauma and things in their
mhm,
past that they need to work through with a counselor. And I couldn't find any counselors that wanted to work with me. And I think they all felt a little bit threatened by the power of the brain healing that I was doing. So I said, okay, well, I guess I have to go back and do that myself. So I went back and got my master's degree and my counseling license. In the meantime, I became a chemical dependency counselor licensed because I'd already had the credentials for that. So I just keep going. And then I recently got my doctor of functional medicine.
mhm,
So we do a holistic practice, and it stems from the addiction part.
Mm,
No substances, no pharmaceuticals, none of that. We try to keep people very natural. We have a natural health store in our office.
mm,
I have an infrared sauna here.
mhm,
We try to do the whole thing, but it really does start with the brain. And this is just how we have grown and change. And I've been holistic for a really long time. That's essential oil lady,
mhm,
probably 20 years. But
mhm.
so that's kind of been my mindset anyway. But
Yeah,
after going through addiction and recovery and knowing the harm that all of these things can do to your brain and body,
yeah,
done with it. I don't want anything to do with it, and I don't want it for anyone else. So, so that's what we do.
I love it.
It stemmed
Can,
from
can people, do you do just in person or do you do online as well?
almost 100% in person, but
Yeah.
we can do online with some things that we offer. But the brain healing has to be done
Okay.
in person.
In person.
Yeah.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, Janelle, as a final question, was there a story in the Bible or a verse in the Bible that you hold on to during this?
Oh, for sure. There has to be, right?
Yeah.
So my favorite Bible verse is John 16:33.
Mm,
I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this
mm,
world you will have trouble, but take heart. I have overcome the world.
mm,
That is hanging in my kitchen where I see it every day, and it is hanging in my office where I see it every day because
mm,
that kept me going.
so good. So good.
Yeah.
Well, Janelle, thank you so much for sharing some of your journey. And y'all, I will link her book and her practice in the show
It's so
notes.
pretty. Look.
It is. Oh, I love it. And
Yeah.
the butterfly,
Yeah.
you'll read about the butterfly and all of that. Um,
Yep.
so good. Janelle, thank you for being here today.
Thanks so much.
And y'all, thank you for watching. If you know somebody that this episode would encourage them in the place that they're at or even have been, would you share it with them? And as always, my name is Tiffany Jo Baker. My heart and hope is that you continue to get free, live full. Thank God. Thanks, y'all. We'll see you next time. Well, friends, thank you for joining us today on the Tiffany Jo Baker podcast, where we continue to get free, live full, and thank God. If you enjoyed our time together and are taking away a nugget that has inspired your soul and success, would you share this episode with a loved one who could use it too? And if you haven't already, take a moment to rate and review this podcast and help me help others fuel and fulfill their faith journeys. Now go do all the things God has called and created you to do with the grace and gifts God has given you.